Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Pro Wrestling Insider. I'm Rodney West, and I'll be calling the action for tonight's festivities, along with Mr. Brian Young, who's incognito tonight.
I'm coming for you, Rodney. I'm coming for that title belt. I got the brains. I'm bigger. I'm better. I'm badder. I got the beret. I'll bring the book. I'll beat you down with the book. And I'm taking the title back to New York.
Well, we will. That will be meant to be seen. I think that I have possession of the championship at this time.
Temporary.
I don't see any change of that anytime soon. I am the man. I am the man and the champion. I can't help it.
I could really scare you. I could take the mask off.
Whoa!
Yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we get underway, let me talk about Brent West, my brother, still in quarantine. He is still suffering from the ravages of the coronavirus. However, doing fine. I think he's not enjoying his time in solitary confinement. His wife is acting like Aunt B from the Mayberry when she had Otis as in The Rock. I don't know if you've ever seen that episode, but fantastic episode where Andy had to bring some of the criminals over at the house, and Aunt B took care of them and wished they were back in jail. And Brent's wishing that he was back or somewhere else as well. So he's recovering. He's doing a lot better, and hopefully he will be out of quarantine by this Friday. Jack Lord also under the weather tonight. We wish him the best. Hopefully he will be back with us tomorrow night. Our guest tonight, Mr. Brian Young, the author of The Wrestler's Wrestler, and he has a fantastic subject he wants to talk about tonight. Well, there it is. Let me zoom in, if I can zoom in where you can see it right there. The Masters of the Craft of Professional Wrestling, Dan Murphy, Brian Young. Awesome book. Check it out. It is, for any historian, definitely a book to have, a must-have, for no doubt about that. So, Brian, you have a subject for us tonight, and let's go.
Yeah, since this book came out, somehow I am considered like a wrestling insider now. It's amazing. Like, I get calls from all over the world, and I keep getting asked these questions, and one of them is, why are there no good heels anymore? And I've had different answers for different people, and if you go through The Wrestler's Wrestler and you look at the heels in this book, all of them would be great heels today.
Yes.
However, where have all the great heels gone? And I wanted to talk to you. Well, I wanted to talk to you guys, but two of you are afraid of me. I understand. They saw the mask. They're scared.
Of course.
At least you're willing to defend your title.
Yes, they play like they're sick. And this has happened. And it's kind of like when you have to face me, you'll probably act sick too, because I'm terrifying. I know.
Well, that's why I had the mask on, so I could send someone else in my place. You won't know the difference.
And that's the reason you can't have a mask world champion. There you go. I mean,
although, with my beard sticking out of it like a fur collar, I think it kind of gave it away.
It was kind of like Dusty Rhodes being Uvalde Slims. I don't know if you remember that. Everybody could tell that was Dusty Rhodes, especially when he cut the ears out and pulled the hair through. That was awesome.
When Jimmy Valiant did the with the only the top half of the mask, so the beard was still out.
Exactly. And there's no way anybody knows who we are.
I'm going to do the dance and everything. Yeah.
That's great stuff, though. Great stuff. But you had like you were talking about, you had a great guy like Paul Jones that was able to say, okay, we all know that's Jimmy Valiant. We all know that is, what is this? What kind of nonsense is this? And the promotion absolutely knows who it is. And then, of course, this the whole deal. Pull the mask off. Then he's suspended. Of course, they pull the mask off later on, and no, nothing ever happens. He's still there.
Now, it did work as a comedy bit when Bill Eadie did it with Blackjack Mulligan as the Machines.
Yes.
Because it started as a joke in Japan that everybody knew the joke, and then when they brought it to the WWF, if people weren't smart enough to get the joke, they brought in the Giant Machine because you couldn't mistake that one.
Yes.
I think they actually had the Junkyard Dog Machine at one point. It was actually the Junkyard Dog Machine.
Awesome, awesome. I think you've got a really good, got a good subject here. I think you were asking. I think from what we were talking about earlier, it was Canadians that were asking why there's no great ones again. And honestly, they're not going to like my answer.
Well, the answer
Go ahead and give the answer that you gave.
to them, and to a large part of America, the culture we live in today, the social media age, the cancel culture, it's very difficult to be a lot of the old heel archetypes. Like, you're not going to have your xenophobic heels. I mean, an Iron Sheik, Fritz von Erich, they're not going to work now because you're mocking or being xenophobic. It's bad. Your sexually androgynous villain's not going to work now because you're going to be called homophobic or transphobic.
Mm-hmm.
Your redneck heel's not going to work right now. You try anybody coming anywhere with a Confederate flag now, they're canceled in a heartbeat. So the only great heel gimmick that still works, you can't even do the crazy man heel gimmick because you're mocking mental health. The only one that really works and could still work right now is the Larry Zbyszko, just I'm a jerk. But not many people are good enough to pull that off today because you have to live it. You can't just go to the ring and do it and then go sign autographs and pat kids on the head.
Sure.
It won't work. Sadly, some things would be considered, and I'm not saying it's not good that we've come to a point where we realize some of the stuff we did in the past was kind of wrong. Yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have said that. Some of these things are bad, but at the same time, it's wrestling. It's larger than life characters. And as a Northerner, I can understand where the Canadians are coming from because it's very similar cultures. You Southern boys, I mean, you come from the heart of bad guy heel gimmicks that I don't think could be pulled off these days. Now, what's your answer? I'll turn the tables on you, Rodney. What's your
honestly, the reason there's not any is because of the way the programs and the wrestling shows are produced. They are all either Vince McMahon light or they want to be Vince McMahon. They don't, that is not their point. Many of the wrestlers do not want to be in that position where they're hated. They want to be known as actors. So the bottom line is the approach is I'm an actor, and so you're not going to get the heat that you once did. And it's developed that way. Even Cody Rhodes, who we just talked about last week, said that they were going to do Shades of Gray. Shades of Gray doesn't work. It doesn't. It simply will not work. You will not be able to build up to these great rivalries that we've had in the past, such as Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee, which either way they worked. We're Wrestling 2 and Superstar, Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson. Most of those, the Superstar, could still be done today. Ole Anderson and his way of doing things could still be done today. Terry Funk is another that absolutely could be done again. And then you had, like the Superstar, who's a masked man, which no wrestler wants to really be a masked man anymore. They want to have their face. They want their face. They want to be able, you could go and you could do nasty things on television and you do nasty things in the arenas on whatever particular night. And then you could take the mask off and you could be hanging out at the bar. You could go out and eat restaurant. You could go to, but now, no, they don't want to be able to, they want to go and be able to see it on television, and they want to be able to sign their autographs and be a star when they walk out. And they can't simply do that when you're getting that kind of heat, such as when Ole jumped Dusty Rhodes in a parking lot in Atlanta. Now, as far as we know the parameters now of what is socially acceptable, and you can stay within those parameters. And a lot of the stuff that's done today is basically for television. So that would mean that you would do the bulk of the hot stuff in the arenas, which was at the time when we had the great ones, were the main sources of revenue. So right now, the main source of revenue is television, and that's it, and pay-per-view. That's it. So the
Yeah,
main
but do you
sources
really
then
think?
were house shows. Go ahead.
Do you really think that it matters now with the arena? Because think about this. Um, I actually watched SummerSlam this year, believe it or not. Partially because I have the Peacock now. I've had it for
Mhm.
several years researching the book. I got all the WWE stuff, and I'm like, I'm going to give this a shot. And it was
Mhm.
actually a pretty good card. I have to give him
Sure.
credit. There were some great
Yes.
matches, but when we heard about all the stuff that went down afterwards with the power and they couldn't use the concession stand, what was everybody's number one complaint? The Wi-Fi was out. You're at the friggin' event and you're complaining that you can't get on your phone and watch it on your phone or film it. That was the main complaint these days. The
Wow.
Wi-Fi was out.
Wow.
Now, I might have been pissed if the Wi-Fi went out because I'd have been probably watching the Yankees game on my phone, but
Uh,
I don't think
when
that's what they were wrong.
when we were going, we always complained about people standing up in front of us when we couldn't see. So that was, and that was the worst was Chattanooga. We sat down on the main floor, and they always oversold the tickets. All right, every time. So the floor would be full of people, and we're sitting down, 2 rows up from on the chair risers. You can't see, so you end up having to use your own uh, abilities because I'm just a kid. So we're sitting on the backs of the chair, and I'm not sure how we didn't fall over. I guess the people in the back kept us from falling, but it was sit down, sit down. It was something. It was
I'm
something.
that guy that gets yelled at now.
Oh, really?
Um, I'm 6'5". I'm a giant. My
Yes.
brother's 6'3", a giant. If we're anywhere at a show of any kind, I feel bad for anybody stuck behind us. So me and him always go and stand in the back so we're not blocking anybody's view because we can see over the crowd,
Yes.
but not
Yes.
many people are as considerate as we are,
Well, I
or
think
as
when
good
you
looking.
have you have, I mean, Piper said some things in his time that today would have gotten you kicked off for sure, but it would have to go back to, instead of being a show like most of our shows, or I say our shows, the shows that we were when we were growing up were already pre-taped, and we were heavily censored by the local TV station or by, say, TBS. Many things we've talked about over and over again. Just merely kicking a man out of a wheelchair almost got Georgia Championship Wrestling canceled from TBS. That was Bruiser Brody doing that, and Barnett had to go, and they had to be a sacrifice, and it was Brody, and followed by, oh, I can't think of his name now, the booker at the time, and I can't think of his name right now, but they were both fired over that, because it offended some people. And lots of times, why was it shown in the first place? They could have easily have edited it out from the show, and I think that's where you would have to go as well, so that you could edit out those part and censor where you needed to.
Well,
Uh,
yes and no, because I think there are certain lines that you're not going to know you're crossing till you cross them these days.
sure.
I mean, there are a lot of people who are just attacked on social media
Mhm.
and they don't even realize why or what did I say that was offensive. But you live in a culture where everybody wants to be offended.
Sure.
I mean, and it's funny. Um, I, I see things. I see people getting just crucified over things that are just nothing. And you'd think 90% of the people would see that and say, "Yeah, who gives a crap?"
Sure.
And yet, the dominoes tumble. I'll give you a perfect example, and this is what I said to our Canadian friends.
Mhm.
Do you think a gimmick like Kamala could go today?
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah.
Yes, I
See,
do.
I don't. I think it gets canceled.
I, I,
I think it
I
becomes too offensive. Not to me. I think, but the culture we're in, it would take is one person to be offended for the people would pull the plug on it.
sure.
And that was a 40-year gimmick that ran
Yes.
strong, and it's gone now. I
Right.
see. That's the kind of thing you got to look at. And I think you're going to see, Frank Zappa famously said, men in suits are what's going to kill music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, men in suits are what's going to kill wrestling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the most hated men in wrestling, one of my people right back there, Inside and Out with Ole Anderson, most hated man in wrestling. He says, very simple, how corporate America destroyed professional wrestling. True.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely true. And they continue. They continue. That's the reason I have a lot of trepidation about NBC or Disney buying the WWE. I really do. I think it goes from bad to worse in that situation when they buy that out, in my opinion.
It all depends on who they put in charge of it. If they buy out a WWE and put someone who actually cares about the product and says, we're not going to care about ratings for the first year, we're not going to care about viewers, we're just going to try to build something, it'll work. If they hire, customer advocacy teams or study sessions to say 7 out of 10 people like it when someone's hit with a chair 12 times a night, so let's hit them with the chair, it's not going to work.
Sure. And that's what it's turned into. It's turned into, as we know, the stunt show instead of personalities. We see that in the last few weeks, personalities have really, I think, take the forefront, but then they revert back to the stunt show. I think Becky Lynch had a tremendous response when she came out. Brock Lesnar, another one. And then, of course, on AEW, we had CM Punk. Tremendous response on both of all those. And again, it's personalities.
Think about what that headlining match at SummerSlam did. Mm-hmm. Do you know how easy it would have been to have the title change hands to one of the biggest superstars in the world, but how bad it would have been for business?
Sure. Absolutely.
2 years ago, they'd have done it.
I wouldn't doubt it. Of course, I myself probably would have done it to retire that Universal title because I believe the WWE only needs one world title, needs only one world champion, only needs one number one man, and have a SmackDown champion, Raw champion. But that's just me. I've talked about that ad nauseum as well.
I agree, but the point is, they would have thrown over their biggest talent. And who they should be marketing their whole business on for the one night pop.
Good. And they have done it. Let's be honest. They have done it. Let's go to some of our insiders and let's check them out. Let's see what happened. See what they're up to. Greg Hickey tuning in and ready to rock like Bad Street. That's right. Absolutely. Bad Street. Freebirds, greatest of all time and would work today. I really do. I believe that Michael Hayes, I think before his time, Freebirds before their time for sure. Greg Hickey. Oops, I said that same thing. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Chad Mojo Hitter Coleman. I love that name. Hello from Winfield, Louisiana. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. Hope
down
you're doing
Louisiana, good. And all our friends in the path of the storm. We had some rain earlier here today. Really come down, and our prayers go out to you. Jason Monday. Hello, everyone. Kevin Penley. Chill Mascaras. That's you. You're Chill Mascaras.
I'll take it.
See, Glenn Allen Shelton. He's with us tonight. Hello, Glenn. Saying get well to Brent. Yeah, I think he's doing a lot better. Still took another test the other day. Still had the COVID, but he is getting better. And hopefully by Friday, he will be out of the quarantine. Chaplain Freddie Rooster Roper, prayers for Brent as well. Victor Nash, I should say. Get well, Brent. We have Ken Penley. Brent's getting the 8B pickles. He's getting the 8B tripping. He comes out of there and Carla's there waiting on him. Back to the room. There's no getting out.
So, Rodney, how does it make you feel that everyone wants to talk about your brother?
Because he's when you always talk about they're still probably concerned that he may. No, he'll be with us. He's just concerned. They're concerned that they may be stuck with me for a while. Prayers for Jack. That's for Chad. And yeah, Jack, it just all of a sudden earlier today, he wasn't feeling well. Hopefully he'll be back with us tomorrow night. Tomorrow, of course, Victor as well. Get well. And Glenn Allen Shelton as well. Mickey Mayfield. Let's see. It's like when Black Atlas tore the mask off to real Tony Atlas. And that, yeah. I remember that was with Abdullah. And I'll tell you right now, I loved Black Atlas. I thought he was awesome. He really was. And the war between he and Abdullah was just awesome. Just awesome. Prayers out to Jack. Jack have it too. I'm not sure. I don't think he does. I think it's something else. We at least we hope it's something else. I didn't get all the details because he just told us earlier today, right before going on. Actually, Michael Rollerson. Good evening, everyone. Talking about Hulk Hogan in the mask. Yes, you could. There's no way you cannot tell that's Hulk Hogan. Glenn Allen Shelton. Richard Hood. Good evening, gentlemen. Victor Nash. Why would you say? Wouldn't you say that MJF is the best heel today? What do you think?
No, Jay White.
Okay. Let's see. Rick Brooks. Hello, guys. Kevin Penley was replying to someone else. Let's see. He was saying that it could be a great hook, but Jericho lets him. We won instead in breaking. Okay. Let's see. Kevin Penley, I hate it, Larry Land gimmick.
Well, but it worked, and that's why it worked, because you still hate him.
The whole thing, though, really wasn't, or for me, really wasn't what Larry said, but it was that turn with Bruno Sammartino that really put him over the top, as far as I'm concerned. It was the nastiness he did to Bruno that made him really the star. And that's the key. You've got to have that dividing line, not just a great heel, but also a great babyface, and not this whole thing of next week, I may be Randy Orton and I may turn on the Riddler. So you never know. I mean, it's so you lose faith in those people.
Now, you know, I talked to Larry for the book, and I talked to him about that, the Bruno, the turn. And it was, 100% Bruno's idea. Bruno knew this would work. It would get him over because Bruno had the brains for the business.
Sure.
And Larry admitted that, he was so young, he didn't know the kind of heat he would get. And he's like, if I'd have known better at that age, I might not have done it that way. As Larry talks. But
yeah.
I mean, the heat he got from that lasts to this day.
Sure it does.
People hate him for that. That's heat.
And also is a testament to the that emotional connection of Bruno with the fans.
Oh yeah,
that speaks volumes about that. That's everywhere. We have the same. You could have the same story with Jerry Lawler and Jackie Fargo in Tennessee, or Wrestling 1 and 2 when they had their deal in Georgia. Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler. It's the same. Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes over the world title.
I get messages on social media, things about the book by people, and most of which are good. They're usually compliments, but I'll get messages from people, especially like older than myself. And I'm in my late 40s. I'm not hiding that, but people who are a little bit older than me that were really there for the Bruno days will say things like, "Oh, this book is great. It takes me down memory lane. That stuff today is garbage, but it was real with Bruno."
Yes.
And they still wholeheartedly believe that, because to them, Bruno was real.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the magic.
And and even with Ole Anderson, they always thought what he did always real, always, for whatever reason.
Terry Funk, who you mentioned, who I talked to 2 days ago. I talked to Terry like 3 times a week still, and what he always says is, I could make them believe because I believed.
Yes.
I believed in Dusty. I believed in Jerry Lawler. I believed in Jack Briscoe. I believed in who I was. I believed in Harley. So there's no way for you not to believe. And that's the difference. Now Terry's obviously not talking
Yeah,
literally.
you made the hair stand on my head, stand up on the back of my
Yeah.
neck when he said that. That was because it's so true. It's so true. He had to have that other person to help him,
Yep.
for no doubt. He had to have the Jerry Lawler and the Dusty. Do you remember when James J. Dillon wrestled as the Scorpion and managed in the late 1970s? I do remember him managing in the late 1970s, but I do not remember him as the Scorpion.
I do not remember the Scorpion, but I would love to see that. I'm writing that down right now.
That
I'm
would
going
be
to be
awesome.
looking that up.
Yeah, one of the first people that James J. I think he in an interview he asked this first person he managed, and that was the Mongolian Stomper. Another one of those great, and again, something I think could still be done.
Nope.
You don't think so? You don't think the
No.
Mongolian Stomper could be used?
Nope.
Well, a person that
anything ethnic, you're not going to be able to get away with today.
Kayfabe wrestling, where heels and faces, it cannot be shades of gray. That's Michael Barr. I think you're right. But everybody has patterned themselves after Vince's product. They have modeled themselves after that. It doesn't matter who they are, from Ring of Honor to even AEW, just another knockoff of the AEW of the WWE, and they just want to be with the cool kids. I guess that's all you can say. Remember the backlash WWE had with the Jihad Mask Heels attack the Undertaker. Yeah. Well, we also remember way back when was Costa refused to do one of the WrestleManias because of the Sheik and Iron Sheik and Sergeant Slaughter and was it Sheik Agnon KC against Hulk Hogan for that when he refused to go. Because that was when the war broke out in Iraq. So, hello, Richard, Victor, and Dr. Philbo. Let's see. Whoops. I'll have to read down. Whoops. We're still replying. Here we go. He was telling everybody not to, don't forget to slap your leg, then the super kick with the super click. Victor, he's doing good tonight. Good. Let's move on down. Kevin Penley. It's going to be he and Skylo Low because they are the same height. Fantastic. Michael Barr, 6'3" here.
That's another thing you can't do in wrestling nowadays. It's very hard to have, and I'm sorry, this is a term you're not even supposed to say anymore, midget wrestling, even though that's what it was called.
Sure. And we have we have a wrestling group around here. That's the in Pigeon Forge. That's what they are, the Micro Wrestling League or something to that degree. I've seen them. They've actually had a show here in our area.
Yeah. See if
Richard,
AEW, WWE will put them on TV.
Probably not. Richard Stewart. Oh shoot! I'm sorry, I forgot Jack. Oh wait a minute. Well, all right. We will let you read that, and then we will hide, and then we will move on. And let me take care of this right here. Okay. Let's move on down. Some people airing dirty laundry on our program. That's okay. I saw that earlier. The Tokyo Monster does okay. That's close to Kamala. And that's Kevin Penley on that one. Michael Mayfield. Mickey Mayfield. 6'1", but I'm 400 pounds. I'm still a mountain in front of you. Richard Hood. Professional wrestling is not a place for political correctness.
Yeah, but you know what? Neither are comedy clubs, and they are now.
Roddy, you need to watch more AEW. I'm not interested. Absolutely not interested, Victor. I'm sorry. There's nothing that interests me. I do not want to see Vince's old trash on the TV. If you want to bring me to AEW, produce your own stars. That's all I have to say. Kevin Penley. In real reality, if someone dives at you, don't you try to move, not catch them? Well, that's pretty much it.
I try to catch them.
Charles Belfort, that's right. Buck Robley was the booker. Yes, Buck Robley was the one that was the sacrificial lamb over the kicking out of the wheelchair on television with Bruiser Brody. Again, there's always been a certain amount of censorship, even in local areas, where we had Jonathan Holiday say some just outrageous stuff on our television program, Continental. Dad fired him. I'm not sure if you heard that story, but Dad fired him on the spot because he said something to the degree that he was better than God, in which you don't say in the South. Even Charlie Platt looked at him. He said, "You said what?" And he saw Dad come, and he said, "Come here."
Well, look,
You're fired.
I'm not condoning it, and I'm not saying it's a good promo. I'm not going to repeat what the promo is, but go back. You can go on YouTube and see a pretty infamous Jerry Lawler yelling slurs promo out there.
Are you talking about the one with Jimmy Valiant?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's and
you could do that then, and it got over. He was the good guy.
Sure, absolutely. And Memphis, they wouldn't have said anything. Memphis is one of the more extreme shows.
Yes,
they got a real long. Whereas, you could take Jarrett, Nick Goulas, Ron Fuller's show, and San Antonio. They're basically the same type of show. Whereas Georgia, Mid Atlantic, Florida are also basically the same type of technique that they were used. And you will not see there would be some very violent stuff on the show, but most they really watched. That's Richard Hood Get Well Brent. We go with another one, Victor Ash. Brent is a face of the show. Rodney is a heel. Yes.
Not tonight.
Yeah, well, he is tonight. Paul Ante. Brian and his brother are considerate of other fans by standing in the back. Buffalo City of good neighbors. Go Bills. All right, very good. Michael Robertson. Watch the episode of Big Time Wrestling in '69 where Ox Baker with hair and no mustache. Very weird. Pretty cool seeing it at the same time. Yeah, he's awesome. He's awesome. Rodney, do you plan on going over to YouTube? Are we not on YouTube tonight?
I think he means for the 8:30 show. The insiders.
I'm sorry. No, not tonight. I'm sorry. I thought Brett had sent a message out to everyone. No, we're not going to be doing anything. We are going to catch up on all of those. Hopefully, just as soon as everybody gets well again.
See, I had heard that you were going to do an hour of breakdancing.
Yes. Well, that one we have to have the very special cost and price for that. Yes.
Oh, and you probably don't have the linoleum.
Well, and then there's not enough room in this small room.
I understand. This
is just nearly a closet here. Stuart Kemp, hoping Brent's doing well. No Jack tonight. Saw the hurricane is heading to Alabama. Alabama Wade. Hope it's not tragic there. Yes, we've already had flooding here, and we're in Tennessee. Greg Hickey. Is tomorrow night Thunderbolt night? Yes, it is. Thunderbolt Patterson Brent next in line in his top 100. Thunderbolt, one of the greats in wrestling. No matter where he went, he was able to make that emotional connection that we talked about with Bruno. Thunderbolt was able to do it whether it was in Florida, with Georgia, even in Australia. I've talked to Bill Dundee about Thunderbolt's stay in Australia. People loved Thunderbolt Patterson in Australia. Just tremendous. Let's go with the next one. Glenn Allen Shelton starting to get Ida prayers and all in the path. Yes. We wish the best for everyone. Because I'm full. Yes. Thunderbolt. Yeah. Thunderbolt. I think so many people patterned themselves. I know Dusty stole some of the Thunderbolt stuff in creating the American Dream, but Thunderbolt was just no one like him. He was a complete original. There's nobody copied him. He tried to copy anybody. He was just a complete original, and I think he was himself. It came from him. Tremendously religious man as well. Christian, tremendous. Dad said he would come to wrestling before the show. He would have the Bible laid out, and as he was getting ready, and he would read the Bible. It was tremendous man. Glenn Allen Shelton Pro Wrestling Tees. That's right. You can get wrestling T-shirts over at Pro Wrestling Tees. Michael Barr. It was build weight and height back in the day. Kevin Penley was that guy Brody hitting. Yes, he did. He was. He was wrestling a guy on television. This was on TBS. There was 2 wheelchairs for whatever reason that was in that studio forever. Me and my brothers, we sat in them. Brent actually rolled off the race car racing show that they did. Their set. We were sitting. He fell off the top off the set and turned upside down right in front of Gordon. Gordon was just about lost it. But yeah, Brody put his opponent in the chair and then kicked him out of it. In fact, I believe it's still available. And that led, of course, to his dismissal. Brody was not getting over in Georgia anyway. Not sure why. He just wasn't getting over. And again, not sure why. I think he was just too big. And when he came out there and told you he was going to do something, he did it.
Brody's personality was not the kind of personality that lent itself to Georgia.
No,
just did. He never got over big in the Northeast either. It just didn't work.
Honestly,
I always loved him. I always thought it was just such a great gimmick because I remember being a kid. He scared the crap out of me.
Sure. And at the time, they had, and it was bad booking at the time when the Freebirds came in. They were so strong. They had no equals, and you've got to have an equal. Or if not, people begin, well, you believe what the Freebirds say because they're doing exactly what they said they were going to do. And it made a liar. And, well, we talked about that at nauseum as well. An hour of breakdancing. Are you kidding? Thought he was going to interview Kevin Sullivan at 8:30. Yes, Kevin Sullivan. Yeah, we're going to talk about why he and Mark Lewin did so well in Georgia. That was the beginning of the end for me with Sullivan. Happy birthday to Stan Hansen, one of the greats, the master of the lariat. He brought that running clothesline. He was the first one really to do it, and in a big way.
His heel gimmick would still work.
That is a beautiful, beautiful. He was great Georgia heavyweight champion. I was thoroughly mad when he beat Dick Slater for the Georgia title. But he was a great champion and actually did not lose the title. He was stripped from him because he did not defend in 30 days because of his feud at the time with Abdullah the Butcher, which was doing great. Richard Hood, Thunderbolt was an attraction and not to be long and not to be in the territory long. Yeah, Thunderbolt though was just tremendous. And as far as Richard, I'm not sure, but I always felt the Georgia television title was always Thunderbolt Patterson's. I just felt he was one of the best when he was a Georgia TV
Well, let
champion.
me ask you this, Rodney.
Sure.
Do you think Thunderbolt would have worked as well if he'd have stayed long in a territory?
No, he wasn't. It was important because Thunderbolt was such an original. Nobody else was doing what he was doing. Nobody else could make the connection that he made. So it was necessary because there was not a lot of people at the time doing the same thing Thunderbolt was doing. And honestly, he was a great black athlete that was able to make connections across demographics. And you could, he was in demand in Charlotte. He was in demand in Florida. He was in demand in Georgia. Just great.
But Thunderbolt would never have worked in the initial WWF takeover. Because he would have been in the same place for too long. Sure. There's something magical about a character like that when you're in a territory and you can move from place to place, and it becomes an event when he comes to town. When Andre came to town back in the day, it was an event. When Thunderbolt was back in town, it was an event. Guess what? If he's going to be on TV every week, who cares?
Exactly. Overexposure is bad, and it's bad for anybody. David Schultz,
unless you're a Ric Flair or a Hulk Hogan or Dusty could pull it off, but not many can.
David Schultz didn't know what he was talking about when he said Thunderbolt didn't draw on the Morton Downey show. Yeah, there's a lot of people just jealous of other people. But David Schultz is a great wrestler. I mean, he was some of the great matches that I've seen was David Schultz. He and Dennis Condrey tremendous tag team. Dan Lang watched the vintage Georgia Championship Wrestling when Gordon referred to Chick Donovan as the second generation wrestler. Never heard that before. Do you know guys know who his parents were? I do not, and I don't remember
No.
seeing that, but I'll have to check that out. And it could very well be he was. Maybe Dandy Jack Donovan. I'm not sure. I will try to see if we can find out about that. Kevin Penley. Who wouldn't give Thunderbolt that name? He started out under his real name. I don't know who gave his name Thunderbolt. Maybe himself, because a lot of times what you saw back then, the wrestlers came up with themselves, and it was just traveling from one place to the other. We loved Thunderbolt Patterson. We really did. Me and my brother, we thought he was awesome. And it was that, again, he'd get right up to that line where he's about to cuss. Okay. I'm going to whoop your, and we all knew what he was saying. And the crowd would respond like, "Ooh, we know what he's talking about. We know what he's talking about." And you know what he was going to say. You know what he meant. It was awesome. Thunderbolt is just an original. Nobody could do what he did. Nobody. And I don't care if they tried, they couldn't do it. But the way he did his interview was infectious. So if somebody else was on the set with him, everybody else would try to do the same thing he was doing. He was, like I said, one of a kind. Absolutely an original, never be another Thunderbolt Patterson for sure. Let's go back to that other one. I think I didn't talk about that one. Like I said, in early shows, Hansen Abbey was the best, the bloodiest feud in Georgia until Rich and Buzz come along. Yeah, Stan Hansen and Abdullah, and that was all over. Stan Hansen had just had a 90-minute time limit draw match with Wrestling 2. And Stan Hansen had come out there and praised Wrestling 2, which he hadn't been over these past few weeks. But with the 90 minutes, he said, you have to respect a man like that. Right about that time, here comes Rock Hunter. And of course, he's managing Abdullah, and he grabs Stan Hansen, his hat, who he had laying on the desk, and he kept moving it. And he finally told Rock Hunter, "You need to stop messing with my hat." And he said, "If you touch my hat one more time," he touched his hat one more time. He nailed Rock Hunter, and then Abdullah jumped him, and they rolled around there at the studios of TBS. This is the old TCG studios, which were just tremendous atmosphere. No doubt about it. Rick Brooks. He was the main event in Detroit in 1968-69. Let's see. Wait a minute. He said, I missed Michael Bard. He said,
what
comment, right here.
Michael?
Sorry about that. Great having you on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. Thanks. Thank you as well, Rodney. Prayers to all. Of course, he's talking about you for being on the show. And thank you. Really, thank you for being here. It's awesome. I think we've had a great conversation, and I think we're caught up. Wait a minute. Yeah, I think we're caught up.
Yeah, we're caught up. So I got to ask some questions to you.
Sure. Go ahead.
You think if you went back to a format where you based your promotion out of your house shows instead of the television, you could have a great heel gimmick again?
Part of it, because again, what you were talking about, your censorship is still there. And in Georgia, they were able to go around the censorship. The event took place in, say, Atlanta City Auditorium. For instance, the parking lot incident with Dusty. He was just, I don't know if you remember this, but it was 78. Way better than the cage, where Ole turned on him in the cage. So, and actually the Omni sold out after that. After the next one with Bill Watson, that didn't sell out. It was okay, but it didn't sell out. But if we would have shown the attack on television, TBS would have said no. Absolutely. Or I say if they would have showed the attack, it would not have played. You wouldn't have been able to do it, and they would have been ready to kick you off TV. However, the mere speaking about it gave you, making it worse in your mind than it ever was. All you saw, and of course, this wouldn't work on television. It would not work, say, years later in a Clash of Champions of Dusty coming down the steps of one of the TV at one of the arenas and he falling. It just wouldn't work on television. It had to be in a house show that this type of thing worked, which most all major angles back when I was growing up was done in the arenas, very rarely on television because, especially in Georgia, because of the censorship of TBS. Just they wouldn't allow it. Lots of things you would see, such as the attack on that the superstar Ray Stevens, Torquemada did in the cage with Tommy Rich was done in black and white because of the blood. Again, that's the way they were able to kind of steer around the censors. So even back then, there were censors. And there were certain things you couldn't say on television. I think Les Thatcher talked about this. There used to be a live show in Roanoke, Virginia, until Boris Malenko brought a chicken out and wringed its neck on television. It's just things even then, and that canceled that show. There was no live television show there in Roanoke again after that. So there's
now
certain
you
things
got to
even
deal
back
with
then.
the public opinion too. You got to deal with the Twitter mob. You got to deal with cultural censorship more so than network censorship. That's the problem I think you're going to have with creating a great heel gimmick now. Unless you're the jerk or the cheater, you can't go with any of the other heel stereotypes anymore. I don't like to say stereotypes. It sounds like everyone was just cookie cutter. But like I said, you can't do the evil foreigner character anymore. It's just not going to work.
But you can still do a foreigner type thing because the Olympics still have that national pride thing going. You still do that. The Russians, Ivan and Nikita Koloff, still could be done today. I think because of the way they were talking about how we are better, superior athletes, et cetera, et cetera. I think that still could be done.
I think you could do a bet. You could probably get away with it more if you chose an ally nation. Like you can get away with it with a pompous Englishman more so than someone who's our enemy, quote unquote. But even that, it's just, you can't take it to the extreme where they want to hate anymore. You can't go with a stereotype. You can't do anything that's going to offend the masses. And like we had the comment earlier, wrestling is not a place for political correctness. But like I said at the time, neither are comedy clubs, and people are taking their cell phones to comedy clubs, filming comedians, posting online them saying offensive things that get their careers destroyed.
Right.
And it would happen in wrestling too. It has happened in wrestling.
We've seen it. We've seen it. Like I was talking about some of the promoters. We've saw that Boris Malenko and lost to TV for them in Roanoke. They no more live television in Roanoke, and that is a tragedy. That's a terrible tragedy that took place. I think you have again, you had the Freebirds and the Junkyard Dog. I think something that similar could be done today, and it's because the Junkyard Dog was over. If you would have done that against, I'm not going to be mean, but you did it against. They did the same thing with Mike Jackson, where they threw the hair cream in his eyes. Not going to get the same response as you did with the Junkyard Dog.
But I don't think you could do a Freebirds now. You could not come down to the ring outside of a few cities in the South where they could still pull it off, but you can't. Yeah, show up to a show in Michigan or New York with a Confederate flag jacket.
Oh, sure. Now, and we talked about that with the Southern Boys a long time ago. We told them that's not going to work. We need to expand our demographic. But the Freebirds of which I'm talking about is the ones that were in Georgia before they did that, and they didn't do that until they went to Texas. It's when they did that.
And look how big it was.
And before, it was awesome. I mean, and really, it's not the fact that they were wearing a Confederate flag; it's the fact of what they did to the Von Erichs. The Von Erichs were superstars at the time.
Again, well, I know, and I love the fact that they were the bad guys. We were supposed to hate them.
Yes.
And so why not let them do a gimmick that you hate nowadays?
Sure. And the same with
it's crazy that you can't do that. We'll cancel you because you're being the bad guy that we hate.
Right.
Well, how am I supposed to make you hate me? I
Yes.
got to do something that offends you, but you can't do that now. The society's changed in a lot of ways for the better,
Well,
but for a business like wrestling, for the worse.
I think that where we're talking about, I think we're talking about two different things. To offend people is to do things like walk up to them and say, "Your mama's ugly." All right. To me, that's cheap. You're not, and it never worked.
No,
Walking up to somebody's up and saying, "Oh, by the way, is this your kid here? It's amazing. Did you have birth or did you have a bowel movement?" Those kind of things. All right. So, and that's just cheap. Anybody can do that. But when you take somebody like what we're talking about with Ole and Ivan Koloff and Dusty in the parking lot, or Ric Flair and Dusty in the cage with the Andersons, it's still things. Those things still can be done today. I truly believe they still can be done today. Uh, like for instance, the Road Warriors. I think that could still be done today.
yeah, but
Like
they came across as baby faces. They were
sure.
too over.
And well, it's because they and it's psychology.
Yeah,
If you go in and you come out there and you tell somebody what you're going to do, and then you go in the ring and you do it without begging off, without being kind of sneaky, it doesn't quite work. But if you do something and it's right out there for all to see, they said they were going to do it, they did it, so there you go. And so people start believing in it. It's the one of the great heels of our time is Ron Wright. I don't know if you know Ron Wright.
oh yeah,
He was a
absolutely.
big star in East Tennessee, one of the great just talents that's ever been. He could lose every single night and still generate the same type of heat the very next day. It was his ability to get back on television, and he would tell the biggest lies that has ever been. Don Carson was another one that could do that. He could lose just right in the middle of the ring, get back on television the very next week, and because people don't get to see the match, there's no video of the match. They come this lie like a dog. Uh, Ron Wright has one where Bill Dromo, he was out there talking about how they had to pull him off of Big Bill Dromo last time at Geauga Park. Well, the fact of the matter is, it was the opposite. They had to pull Bill Dromo off of him. And it's those are a slight techniques that are not used. There is no begging off in wrestling today, none whatsoever. Ric Flair was the king of it. That's the reason that he could manipulate the crowd in any way he wanted to. Didn't matter if he and Arn was against Doom. All he had to do, all he has to do is put his hands up, beg back in the corner, and it automatically tell people who he is, what role he's playing. And it's psychology, and nobody wants to do it. I don't care what. If you watch a match, you can't tell one from the other. But if you watched the match from way back when, you could. Jerry Stubbs was another one.
It takes a long time to develop a great character, and it doesn't exist anymore. You don't have time. You're assigned a character now. You come out of one of their wrestling schools and they say, okay, you're a good guy who, waves the American flag. You're a bad guy who, slaps your valet, whatever, which you can't do that anymore either. But so these guys, they're not able to develop their personas, their characters. Do you know do it? The women. The women are doing it far better than the men are.
Oh, you are exactly right about that. Just
You
awesome
know
what they're
the
doing.
baby face and the heel in a women's match.
Yes,
They nailed it. They know how to do it. The men,
sure.
they don't.
No,
And I think it could be ego. Everybody wants to get over.
You're exactly right, and it requires what somebody has to sell. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Dusty they didn't get the heat, as we called it, heat on Dusty or Thunderbolt Patterson? Well, what's the reason to make a comeback? There's not.
Yeah.
There's not. And the way they formulate the matches, where it's just more of a acrobatic type thing. There's really no story being told. If you want, there's a whole bunch of mid-Atlantic matches, and it doesn't matter with Ric Flair or with Paul Jones, Ricky Steamboat. Just watch them. Those heels will pound him and Ricky Steamboat or whoever into the ground. It looks like they've killed them. And then they make that comeback, and those people are going just
Blow the roof
bonkers,
off the place.
and they are all over the ring. It's just not, they won't punch them and then stand there. The worst thing for me right now, it just runs all over me, is when the WWE does a pin, and any other show for that matter, and then the guy kicks out, and they look at the camera like, it's a surprise, he kicked out. What am I supposed to do now? It's every single show. Every single show. We have some more comments. We will go.
Because 7 out of 10 people have said they like it when you look at the camera after. That's who's writing wrestling now.
Exactly.
Like I said the last time I was on, once sports entertainment became more entertainment than sport,
yes,
it ruined.
Exactly. And it's the sport. It's the sports way. And again, the proper heel babyface concept, real heel, cannot happen as long as you have the formula that WWE has created. They created, Vince McMahon created this formula. That's the reason he wins every time, and everybody follows it. And until you break that formula and have your and basically recreate the wheel and do your own thing, all you're going to be doing is you're just going to be at whatever whim he's got, whatever whim they got. All right, let's go with let's see. I'm sorry. We've been talking, and I've let our comments get out of whack. I'm sorry about that, people. And we're going to go long. If you don't mind, we'll go longer. But we're not going to. We're
got about a week and a half.
Sure. Whenever you get tired or everybody gets tired, we'll quit. Since we're not going over and doing the other show tonight.
As long as I don't have to put the mask back on because it's really hot out.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, sure. Why not?
How do you guys work in these things? I wish Jack was here. I'd ask him, how could you work under that?
Oh, it's yeah, and that to me, masked men are really something I miss. I really do. We had such great ones. The Spoiler was another one that was just, he scared us, and that's the main thing. They scared us. That Stan Hansen would scare you. I mean, no doubt. Michael Barr, like coming into the ring on a hook and a cable. Yeah, that's yeah. Or even today, every show has to have their big screen with the big prepared video thing, and everybody has to have music. It's just nonsense.
Yeah, no
Daniel,
surprise when someone rushes the ring anymore.
No.
When their theme music plays before they come out.
No. Daniel Lang, how did they get by with breaking Dusty's arm in the parking lot? Dusty telling them, you better make it look good. Because he said, you better make it look good. He can convince TBS that was part of the show. Exactly. And that's the reason he did it. And for whatever reason, later on, TBS, especially when they began to buy it, they loosened up the censorship on the show. You can tell. Lots of stuff that was done after they bought it would never have been allowed to do done restored.
Because I don't think they were paying attention.
No. Well, they were wanting to make money. Well, they weren't making. TBS was making money. WCW was being cannibalized by other parts of TBS, whether it be TBS revenue for championship World Championship Wrestling on Saturday nights and Sundays. Total, all that revenue came to TBS. None of it went to the wrestling. That was one of the most convoluted things I ever seen, to make the wrestling look like it's losing and propping up the profits for the other divisions. It was unbelievable. Kevin Penley, then they've taken away the heat from the fans. Yeah.
I don't know about that. Go back to that for a second.
Sure.
Because I'll go back to just this SummerSlam.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most entertaining portion of the night was the Edge match, because they had this several year background story.
Sure.
And they let it develop the heat with the fans in the building. That was more about playing to the fans of the product for years than an instant ratings grab.
Sure.
Because I think most people who just started watching it in the picture didn't know who the hell he was anyway. We're giving a gift back to the fans who've been loyal for a while. And that heat was there because they knew it. I didn't, because I wasn't watching for those years, but it worked. And it got me excited watching how over it went with the crowd.
Right.
And that was back in the fans' hands for that.
Sure.
And it worked.
And it's okay. They can do one of those matches, and all the rest could be the same. But it obviously stood out. Wendy Hawkins. It also depends if you have a plant in the audience. Any heel gimmick can get over. A plant in the audience. Okay.
Do you remember that old expose they did years ago? That videotape that came out, Wrestling Secrets Exposed. They hire old ladies to be vulnerable grandmothers in the audience to get beaten up.
Yeah. Okay. Too many people get offended over too much nonsense.
I'm offended by that comment, Michael.
Yes, and the thing about it is that it is amazing of what people will give into today, and just instead of fighting you over it, we'll just. But the thing about it is, back then you can get heat 1 week, and then a couple of weeks later, nobody even remembers it even happened, and it's true. It happens, unless like you're in Knoxville and Bob Armstrong breaks cane over Ron Fuller's head and hits a lady between the eyes, and then people remember that for a while.
Yeah, they're going to not forget.
There's a lawsuit about that one. It was just a gimmick. That was back when wrestling was. That was what wrestling back then was all about. Daniel Lang. The Freebirds had a Confederate flag painted on when they fought against the Road Warriors in Chicago. Yes, they did, and that had to do with what Brian was saying about those days, and it was north-south type thing. Kevin Penley. How about Nick Cage and the pizza cutter? And then they cut to the pizza commercial. Then they lost Domino's. Yeah, sure. I think they got a Budweiser or beer sponsor after that.
It was a stupid thing anyway.
Sure. And the thing about it, back in when I was talking about it, same group of people, TBS, would have had a fit about that kind of thing. Again, Georgia Championship Wrestling was highly censored. Do you remember and I know you do, where the Freebirds pile drive Ted DiBiase, what was it, 5 times or whatever it was?
Oh, God,
pile on the floor. Jim Barnett had to go to TBS and fight over that to get it to air. They did not want it aired. And it was just, can you imagine not being able to see that? It was just, it was a testament to what should have been done with Ted DiBiase months before, because the previous booker before that had DiBiase running from the Freebirds, which was a disaster, and I think led to his dismissal. It was just, I don't know if I've talked about it before, and it was just awful. Fellas, it has to be the definite line between babyface and heel. Sure. Good and evil. No doubt about it.
It's all about heroes and villains. It's all about white hats and black hats.
Sure.
Wrestling works because of the conflict. It's good over evil, or evil over good. I mean, that changed about 10 years ago. Who knows? Sure. But it's, if you're not picking a side, who gives a blank? I mean,
yes. I'm okay with competition matches. I like competition matches.
Yes, but not as a rule.
And you can build them and as a special attraction, sure, but not something you can do, as you were saying, daily. Because even back in the day, in Mid Atlantic, they would have the Andersons against Rip Hawk and Sweet Hansen. I mean, they did it a lot. The Battle of the Brutes. Why can't we have masked wrestlers anymore? The hidden identity was a mistake. Sure. And a lot of them would rather run around and tell everybody who they are.
I think you nailed that earlier when you said it's because who wants to hide their face?
Sure. They want to be known, ego. And you never know. You might get a reality show. I could care less about reality shows. Okay. Glenn Allen Shelton, to get over, replace the Confederate belt. At the end of the run, you throw the belt in the trash, or you can be Jerry Stubbs and throw it off a bridge. That was good. That was some good. Wick Mike, woo. Okay, that's what he said. I'm just repeating what he said. Mickey Mayfield, what was the name of the German kid that danced in WCW? I can't remember. I almost had it. It'll come to me. It'll come to me.
I
Ron,
do not remember.
it'll come to me in a minute. Ron Wright could have destroyed the business if the Plan B video would have. Sure, it could have. Sure, it could have. And it's not. I'm not going to take away from, because that was very serious what they did. Destroyed wrestling in Knoxville for years. That even without the Plan B, destroyed the wrestling in there for years. But it doesn't take away from the brilliance of Ron Wright. He was just tremendous. Even when we got to work with him again in USA, Ron Fuller brought him in for USA. Again, the best part of the show was Ron Wright. And he was never at the house shows. He was always on TV, never at the house shows, but he was awesome. Go ahead.
All those guys involved in the Plan B. It was awful. The fact that it never got out is a miracle, that it sat on a shelf for all those years.
Sure.
But almost every one of them was back.
Sure. And it's because of as we got into the 80s, the talent situation became slim. The development of new talent.
I know your feelings on Roop. Sure. I on a personal level, I like the guy. I get along with him. He's a very smart guy. He's actually a very nice guy. He's very mellowed out as the years went on. And I think he even looks back and regrets that whole thing, which he should. But I don't know how anybody could have worked with any of those guys again. I mean, I'm glad they did, because Orton went on to have a great career, Orton Jr. Right.
Yes.
And
Ronnie Garvin.
People behind the scenes had to know that existed somewhere. Mm-hmm. At least some people did. So I don't know how anybody was willing to work with them. I'm amazed. That was, if ever there was a miracle, as a non-religious person, if ever there was a miracle, it's the fact that video was not released for 30 years.
Right. This is John Walker. He's the Robert Walker. He's the son of Mr. Wrestling 2, one of the greatest, as far as I'm concerned, masked wrestler of all time. Aloha from Hawaii. Stan Hansen, one of the nicest guys, an amazing wrestler. Saw him at PWHF. Had a great conversation. Yeah, it's great. And by the way, awesome video or coverage of his mother, of Robert's Olivia Walker, when they were discussing Ric Flair's robes. Just one of the most creative, gifted people that has ever been. Olivia Walker, just awesome wrestling attire, just genius. She was genius. Michael Barr, Jerry Stubbs, one of the best, no doubt. Again, one of the great wrestlers that were able, so versatile in his approach. Didn't matter which way he was working, people bought him either way, and it was just tremendous. And as I've always said, Stubbs would have been, I believe, a huge star if it wasn't for his medical problems. I believe he would have been just huge, because he was on his way to work in Georgia when Arn Anderson went there. So let's see, we got Wendy Harkin. WWE is way predictable. I agree. They do telegraph a lot of stuff. Michael Barr, yes, the commentators on WWE had said it all the time. I've never seen anything like that in my own career as a commentator. Okay. Wow. Michael Barr. Mr. Wrestling 2, the Wrestling Pro, the Blue Yankees, Mr. Olympia. Yeah, great masked wrestlers, and they were great ones. The Assassins. The Spoiler is one of the top ones as far as
Dick Beyer. Hello, yeah. Buffalo. Yeah.
That's right. The Destroyer, which we talked about.
Yep.
Super Destroyer, the Superstar. Of course, we've all talked about here. Jack Lord's one of the reasons he got in the wrestling business, the Superstar. Just brilliant. And of course, if you go back and watch Bill Eadie as the Superstar, I think his best work was then. Demolition was okay, but nothing like the Superstar.
And Bill is one of the nicest guys in the world, and he is so amazingly soft-spoken.
Yes, he is, and that way he was able to do the interviews. He came across was just as legitimate. Just awesome, and no wonder it was a fantastic star. He was a Superstar for many years. Michael Barr looking at finishing moves back then opposed to today's finishing moves. Okay, we will do that. We will do that one day. Sure.
I love when you could do 5 finishing moves on someone and they still kick out at 2.5.
That's right. Bob Armstrong versus the Stomper. Great psychology. The Stomper would just about kill Bob, and then Bob would have enough, and he would shake his finger at the Stomper, and the Stomper would start backing up. Awesome. Yes. And the key to that, the selling and the backing off, not done today. Just not done today. Excuse me. Let's see. Glenn Allen Shelton. What moves now see to take 5 moves before an end? Yes, I agree. And I noticed that as well. Even though I do watch all shows fast forward. Rick Brooks. I'll just tell you the commentary kills me. It just absolutely kills me. I just cannot. I've discovered what it is. Everybody's doing Jim Ross. And when Jim Ross was doing it, and he was the only one doing that type of commentary, it was unique and it was brilliant. Absolutely.
Well,
but everybody has patterned themselves after him.
Every great promotion that ever gets over and worked well had a great voice behind it.
Yes.
And it was always a different voice and an original voice. And
exactly.
Now when everybody's just doing someone else, it doesn't work. I mean, I don't want to hear someone imitating Jim Ross.
No.
I don't want to hear someone imitating Gordon Soley. I don't want to,
No, they're not. Rick Brooks never cared much for masked wrestlers. Well, okay. All right. And by the way, I'm getting close. The gentleman, the German guy that died, his first name was Alex. I will get the last one here shortly. It's coming to me. Alex is the first one, and I'll get the other one here shortly. Eventually, he shaved his head and then some kind of other gimmick later on down the road. Let's go here. I skipped one. Sorry. You ever guys see the Dudley Boys Heat Wave incident? I don't think I did.
No, I don't know that.
I liked the Dudley Boys though. That was quite unique. Alex, I'm getting it. It's coming. Alex, something or another. Rick Brooks. I want to push. I want to know who Orange Cassidy is related to in the business. Why else would you push a clown?
Okay.
Good question. Okay. Well, listen to that. Randy Ward. Do you think Tommy Rich should have been in the Hall of Fame? What do you think?
Yeah, I actually do. Not like I would say, oh God, if he's not in there, it's a disgrace. There's no need for a Hall of Fame without him.
Right.
But I think he's worthy.
Sure. Daniel Lang, Dusty saying, "You better make it good." Was it him quoting a movie? And I would say again, I would say that's how it got past the censor. Sure. Alex Wright. Yes, I had the Alex part. Alex Wright is right. The dancer. He did an okay dance, and he was decent wrestler as well. Kevin Penley.
He didn't have your moves.
No, he did not. Nobody could.
How you could still do that? What's the one? The snake? Where you?
Yeah, the worm. I think it was the
worm.
worm.
The worm.
Yeah, the worm. Yeah. Eric Wright. We're getting there. It's Eric. It was Alex. Alex Wright was the dancer, and he did another thing. We shaved his head and did a goatee and the whole 9 yards. Later on, it didn't work, and of course it was Glenn. I said Alex. I don't know if everybody else had Alex before I had that. Alex Wright was the dancing German kid. Yeah, I thought again pretty decent. I thought pretty decent. They just didn't know what to do with him. He was just another one of those gimmicks. Ronnie Garvin upset me the most on that video. Yeah. Garvin, he was such a great talent, and he is a great talent, great guy. Dad thought the world of Ronnie Garvin, and actually thought he liked all of them. He liked all of them and worked with all of them. Bob Orton Jr. and Bob Roop. And Bob Roop was one of the agents that Ole had brought in at WCW. The Lucha wrestlers will still wear masks. They do. Big time down there. The Nightmare Ted Allen. Great wrestler.
Just very underrated wrestler.
Yeah. The Superstar was one of the best. Yeah, Superstar was fantastic. The first run he in Wrestling 2 in Georgia was stellar. You didn't think that they could have topped anything with what we've talked about tonight, the Dusty and Ole, Ivan Koloff thing that they did, Superstar Wrestling 2. That thing went on for years after that. It was just great. Vicky Mayfield, can't forget the assassin. No, Rick Brooks, Alex Wright. Yep, he got it. Yeah, I'm glad y'all got it. I got the Alex part. Alex Wright's dad was Stephen Wright, an English wrestler who toured the United States in the 1970s. Daniel Lang. He's always got good information, Daniel does. Remember, Alex Wright went to Berlin in WCW. Kevin Kinley. Outstanding.
I'm a little offended that all these people mentioned these great masked wrestlers and no one mentioned the beret, the masked beret.
The masked beret, yes.
The future heavyweight champion coming after your title.
Yes. It's going to be a blindfold match, of course. It's going to be fantastic.
I'm pretty much blindfolded in this. I'm so blind without glasses. I was going to have the glasses on over it, too.
It's good to tell your opponent what your weakness is. That's always a good idea. That's awesome. That's just awesome. Let's see. Let's go right here. John Walker had some bad news today. Sean O'Brien, referee, aka my oldest brother, passed away. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Oh, John, that's awful. Our condolences, Robert. Anything we could do for you, just let us know. Just terrible. I'll let my mother know. We all grew up together. That's terrible news. The Masked Beret was a great wrestler. Don't doubt it. Dick Beyer and Billy Red Lions were brother-in-laws. Excellent. To our next one here. We didn't mention the Blue Mini either, so there we go.
Great guy.
Yeah.
He's a really great guy.
A decent wrestler. And of course, that's from Robert. Robert, we're just terrible. Sorry to hear that. It's unbelievable. Prayers and condolences from Michael Barr. Robert. It's terrible news. It's just awful. Oh boy. Like I said, we grew up with him. We had many a wrestling match with Robert and Mike and John at their house and ours. Battle royals of every kinds. Such great times. Sorry to hear that. It's terrible. I think we'll just call that the end if you don't mind. Again, our condolences again to the Walker family and Mike Pierce. Sad stuff. Prayers to from Sean was a great guy and referee. Just terrible news we got tonight. As always, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank you for joining us here on Pro Wrestling Insider Net. We're just going to end with that note right there. Thank you, Brian. We've got to do this again. Had a great time.
Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
This is awesome, and hopefully, Britt will be back with us later maybe by next week. Jack tomorrow night, and until then, I'm Rodney West for Brian Young. We'll see you on the next Pro Wrestling Insider Now.